Do you prefer Trump wins, or do you think DeSantis still even has a chance?
We had DeSantis on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and it was an interesting conversation. It was the first time I saw him kind of getting comfortable and loose and talking. But, I'll give you one perfect example. I asked DeSantis, I showed him the clip about his boots because they say he wears high heels. And I said, how tall are you? He says 5'11". Okay. There's pictures online of his marriage with him and his wife. And they're the same height. And she's 5'6", 5'7". Maybe she's wearing heels. Maybe he's 5'8". Okay. There's pictures of him playing baseball. There's pictures of him when he was younger. After 21 years old, how many more inches do you grow after 21? Right? Mm-hmm. And he wears these boots and it just doesn't look good. Right? So this hashtag for 2 days was trending called Bootgate after we did the podcast. And I asked him a question and I gave him a box of Ferragamos, his shoe size. I said, I'd love to see you wear dress shoes and tennis shoes. And he says, I can't accept a gift. You know why I was doing that? I was doing that for there to be a moment of levity and self-deprecation for the audience to be like, you know what? I like him. Let me give him a chance. He's a human like me. Because when Trump went on Jimmy Fallon, he says, hey, Jimmy, Trump, they say your hair is a toupee. He said, my hair's not a toupee. It's my hair. He says, you sure? Can I touch it? He says, well, I'm about to go to a fundraising at Rhode Island. I just hope the people in Rhode Island know if my hair's messed up, it's because of Jimmy. He goes like this. You know what Jimmy does? Have you seen this? He messes with his hair. He pulls his hair. He says, no, it's real. Guess what? Done. The world watched it and said, no, he thought he was an uptight, guy. He let Jimmy play with his hair? What was that all about? These are moments where people kind of say, he's like me. DeSantis' challenge is, my opinion, and I asked him, I could be wrong. You ever met people that grew up in an environment where they were walking on eggshells with a father or a mother that
Yeah.
Dude. And that kid grows up like, hey, if you ever want to be a president, you better make sure you don't do this or send this text or send that email with this picture because God forbid one day comes back. Dude, that kind of a life is a miserable life. I watched DeSantis. I watched somebody who's walking on eggshells.
So you don't think he has that personability quality to be
he hasn't shown
electable?
It. Unfortunately, he hasn't shown it.
Right. Yeah, he hasn't really.
He hasn't shown it. And you have to have it. Yeah, Obama had it. And by the way, here's why though, okay? So on this podcast, who's the main core pillar of this podcast? You, right?
Both of us.
In every platform, there's somebody that's the dog, that's the leader, and somebody that's the flag carrier. You have to ask yourself, are you in the flag carrier community or the alpha? So now there's levels to this. What does this mean? Obama was the alpha. Biden was the flag carrier. Biden became a president. Reagan was the alpha. George Bush Sr. was the flag carrier. He became a president. Paul George the other day, I don't know if you know Paul George, basketball player, says one of the sickest things the other day on his podcast. He does podcasts with a friend of mine's son, Dallas. Dallas is a freaking talent. I love Dallas. And he says, you know what took me 10 years to realize? I can never win a championship as number one.
Who said that?
Paul George. Can you imagine one of the best players ever who has scored 50 points, God knows how, averaging 28 points a game? You don't think you can win a championship as a number one? Do you know what level of maturity and wisdom it takes to say that? Who couldn't say it? Westbrook and others couldn't say it for the longest time.
That's that 30% selfless, right?
That's the part. So Durant even can't win as a number one. Durant didn't win as a number one, not at OKC, not at Nets. Now, they may say, well, he was number one. He was never number one at Golden State. He was freed by Steph Curry. But he's never won as a number one. Steph Curry is a number one. Draymond Green is a flag carrier.
I don't know if he was freed by that, though, because he got a lot of hate for doing that.
Well, because he wanted to prove to the world that he was number one, and he hasn't proven yet that he can win without a Steph Curry. Right. He couldn't do it with Kyrie. Everybody's put a teamer on him. My point I'm trying to make to you is DeSantis has to ask himself, is he a flag carrier, president? You can still be a president, but Trump's an alpha. So he could have easily been the guy to helped Trump be a flag carrier, and then he could have ran 2028. He would have gotten MAGA. But because of the way he took his position, unfortunately, I don't think majority of MAGA is not going to forgive him. And they're going to remember that forever to come.
I wonder why he made that decision, because that would have been such a formidable duo. Trump DeSantis 2024.
Oh,
And you
dude.
think there's no chance that still happens?
Well, I asked him, I said, when's the last time you called Trump? I don't need to call him. I said, would you be willing to go have a meeting with Trump at Mar-a-Lago? I'm not going to fly out to him. I'll get on a call. Can't say stuff like that. You're not the alpha. You can't talk to an alpha like that. He's the alpha. You're not.